You were born with the code, the hidden blueprint of reality benders. You don't accidentally land on a video like this. You're here because something deep inside you is stirring. Maybe it's been whispering for years. Maybe it's been screaming lately. That strange feeling that you're not like the others. That the rules of this world never fully applied to you. That you've always been able to sense something deeper, something unseen, something ancient moving just beneath the surface of reality. That's not your imagination. That's the echo of your rare power waking up again. And if you're still watching, then it's time to remember.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lessons.
Let me be clear, this isn't about ego. This isn't about being special or chosen in the way people romanticize. This is about responsibility. Because when you carry dark power, the kind that can bend reality itself, you don't get to live a normal life. You don't get to play small. You don't get to sleepwalk through existence. You are constantly being watched, tested, guided, and aligned by a force that most people have never even touched. And that's why life has never been fair to you. It's been precise, surgical, designed to sharpen you. The first sign is this: you've always felt like an outsider, even when you were surrounded by people. Not just emotionally, but energetically. You walk into a room and feel like you're observing from another dimension. You talk to others and hear the words, but you're tracking something else. The patterns behind their words, the energy behind their smiles, the emptiness behind the noise. You were born with an extra sense. You weren't meant to fit in. You were meant to see what others can't. And that isolation you felt your whole life. That was your initiation. Because only in separation could you learn to listen to the deeper signal. The second sign is that you've always attracted chaos. Not because you're cursed, but because your energy field is a disruption to the matrix. You carry a vibration that breaks illusions, and that vibration triggers everything that's false around you. That's why people either love you instantly or feel threatened by your presence. You don't need to say a word, your energy does the talking. And most people aren't ready to meet themselves in the mirror you hold. Your presence activates dormant codes in others. It wakes up what they've tried to bury. And you've probably been blamed for things you never caused. But now you see, that wasn't punishment. That was power. Unrefined, untamed, waiting to be understood. And here's the third sign, the one that most people deny because it's so intense. You can feel when reality is bending around you. You've had moments, maybe seconds, maybe hours, where time slowed down, where you thought of someone and they called, where you spoke something and it happened, where you felt like you were outside of time, watching events unfold that you somehow already knew. That's not coincidence. That's not luck. That's your field syncing with the raw framework of reality, the quantum layer beneath the veil. And it only happens when you're fully aligned, when you're not pretending, when you're not trying to be understood, when you're just being. But here's the paradox. Your power doesn't get stronger through control. It gets stronger through surrender. That's the fourth sign. You've noticed that the more you try to force life, the more it resists. But the moment you let go, not give up, but truly let go, things start aligning in impossible ways. That's because your power isn't meant to dominate reality. It's meant to dance with it. You're not here to control the simulation. You're here to co-create it. And that means learning the language of energy, not logic. Presence, not perfection. You bend reality by becoming the vibration of the timeline you desire. Not by chasing it, but by embodying it. So we have to ask the real question now. If you were no longer afraid of your own intensity, who would you become? If you stopped apologizing for being different? If you stopped shrinking to make others comfortable? If you stopped pretending you didn't feel what you feel? What would your life look like? What would you create? Who would you leave behind? Because that's the real test. Power isn't about what you can attract. Power is about what you can walk away from without losing yourself. You've likely already experienced the fifth sign, even if you didn't have words for it. You see through illusion instantly. You can't watch the news without feeling the lie. You can't stay in shallow relationships. You can't follow traditions just because you're told to. You question everything, and that's not rebellion. That's remembrance. Because deep down, you remember a time, a dimension that operated by different laws, where truth was felt, not filtered, where energy was language, where souls communicated in symbols, not noise. And you've been trying to get back there ever since. But here's the sixth sign, and it's the one most people miss entirely. You've died before. Maybe not physically, but spiritually, emotionally. You've had moments where the old you was completely destroyed, where you lost everything, where you faced the void and came back changed. That wasn't a breakdown. That was a reboot, a recalibration of your channel. Because only by dying to the false self can your real power come online. You had to lose who you thought you were to become who you actually are. And if you're still here, breathing, watching this, it means the new version of you is ready. Not someday. Now. And finally, the seventh sign, the rarest of all. You've always known deep down that you were sent here with a mission. You didn't come just to work a job, pay bills, and die. You came to awaken something ancient in this timeline. You came to shift the frequency of this planet. And your life has been orchestrated to prepare you for that. Every betrayal, every loss, every moment of silence, it was all training. You weren't being punished. You were being forged. And now, the world is catching up to your frequency. You're not ahead of your time anymore. You are the time. So I ask you, with all the presence I can offer, what if everything you've been through was the exact curriculum needed to unlock the next dimension of your power? Would you still regret it? Or would you rise now not as someone looking for answers, but as someone who remembers who they are? Because that's the shift. You're not here to be liked. You're here to bend reality. Not with force, but with frequency. Not with effort, but with embodiment. The frequency of the forbidden ones, how you shape reality without trying. You were born with the code. not a metaphorical one. A literal, energetic architecture embedded in your field. It's not something you read in a book or learned from a teacher. It's something you remember when the world no longer makes sense. And when that remembering begins, you stop seeking purpose in the outer world and start unlocking it from within. That's the secret most people will never grasp. Your mission isn't something you find. It's something you uncover by removing everything that isn't you. And when you do, the blueprint activates. You start seeing the patterns, strange synchronicities that seem too precise to be random. People showing up in your life exactly when your frequency shifts. The same symbols appearing in dreams, songs, conversations. You start realizing you're not just experiencing life, you're designing it from the inside out. Your thoughts, your emotions, your energy, they are not passive. They are programming the simulation in real time. But here's the deeper truth. Most people are running old software. They're using outdated beliefs to shape their lives. You came in with a different operating system. One that doesn't obey the rules of logic. One that responds only to alignment. That's why traditional methods never worked for you. Forced goals, step-by-step plans, affirmations that didn't resonate. You tried to follow the formulas, but your system rejected them. Not because you were broken, but because you were coded differently. Your power doesn't come from structure. It comes from coherence. When your inner world is clear, your outer world bends to match it. You don't need to hustle reality. You need to sync with it. And that's what makes you dangerous to the old systems, because you make the impossible look effortless. This is where the real test begins. Because when you realize you can bend reality, the question isn't what can you create. The question is, can you handle the responsibility of being in full creative power? Can you stay rooted when everything around you is shifting to match your thoughts? Can you embody maturity, not manipulation? Can you choose alignment over instant gratification? Because power without self-awareness becomes destruction. But power with inner mastery, that's divine creation. And that's the silent curriculum you've been walking through without even realizing it. All those times you were stripped of everything. All those moments you were left in silence, facing yourself. That wasn't failure. That was refinement. You were being taught how to hold power without becoming corrupted by it. You were being whispered the truth. You don't need to force anything, just become the version of you that already lives in the future you desire. That's how you time travel. That's how you quantum leap. You collapse the illusion of time by collapsing the illusion of self. And here's where it gets mystical. Once you stabilize in that frequency, you begin to notice reality responding in real time. You'll think of someone and they text you. You'll speak something and it happens. You'll walk into a room and feel the energy shift just from being there. This isn't magic. This is resonance. You've become a tuning fork for the future. And your field is now bending timelines not through force, but through presence. And the people around you can feel it, even if they can't explain it. But there's a shadow to this gift, a cost. Because as your power rises, your life becomes more precise. You can no longer fake it. You can no longer tolerate what drains you. You can no longer lie to yourself. The consequences hit faster. The misalignments correct themselves more violently. And this is where most people fall off. They want the power, but not the responsibility. They want the magic, but not the maintenance, but not you. You're still watching. You're still here. That means you're ready. Ready to stop flirting with your power and start owning it. Ready to stop asking for permission to be great. Ready to stop apologizing for seeing what others don't. Because here's the truth no one tells you. Your reality doesn't shift when others believe in you. Your reality shifts when you finally believe in yourself. And that belief isn't loud. It's quiet. It's a knowing, a stillness, a frequency that says, I remember now. I've always been this. So now the question becomes, what version of you are you refusing to become because you're still attached to who you were? What would happen if you finally surrendered to your highest timeline? What would shift if you stopped negotiating with your potential and just lived it? Not someday. Not when you're ready. Not when it makes sense. Now. Because the reality is, your timeline is waiting for you to choose it. It's already built. It's already alive. But it can't activate until you step into the vibration that matches it. That means cleaning your field. That means mastering your thoughts. That means saying no to what doesn't feel like truth. Not because you're better, but because you're remembering. And once that memory becomes consistent, reality has no option but to follow you. This is why you don't need to convince anyone anymore. You don't need to explain your vision. You don't need to justify your solitude. You're not here to be understood. You're here to transmit. And those who are meant to align will feel it. They won't need proof. They'll just know, because their codes will recognize yours. That's how the real ones find each other. Not through words, through resonance. And in that resonance, you will finally feel what you've been seeking all along. Not just purpose, but peace. The peace of being fully you, without compromise. The peace of knowing you're exactly where you're meant to be. The peace of watching reality rearrange itself around your alignment. That's the frequency of the rare ones, the forbidden ones. The ones who came not to follow the world, but to reprogram it from within. And now I ask you, if you stopped dimming your frequency for just one day, what would become possible? What would collapse? What would rise? What would finally find you? You don't need to be louder. You need to be clearer. You don't need to try harder. You need to trust deeper. Because the moment you fully trust the blueprint inside you, the universe stops testing you and starts following your lead. The final gate. Why your darkness is the doorway to infinite creation. There comes a moment in every rare soul's life when they're no longer afraid of their darkness. Not because they've conquered it, but because they finally understand it. They realize that their darkness is not the enemy, it's the container, the womb, the origin, the silence before the sound. the unseen energy that holds the raw material of all creation. And when you stop running from it, when you stop trying to fix it, when you stop labeling it as broken, you enter the final gate. The one no one talks about. The one where your true power wakes up. The world has taught us to chase light, to seek only the positive, to bypass the pain. But we were never meant to avoid the darkness. We were meant to remember who we are inside it. Because light without shadow is incomplete, power without depth is unstable, and truth without pain is still a lie. Your darkness holds the codes you've been searching for, and the memories, the abilities, the quantum blueprints of your soul's highest potential. But it will only reveal them when you stop trying to escape it. This is where most people stop. They reach the edge of that void and turn back. Because the darkness doesn't flatter you. It doesn't comfort you. It doesn't give you applause. It strips you bare. It takes everything you thought you needed and asks, "Now who are you?" And if you're brave enough to answer that question, you don't come back the same. You come back whole. You come back with a knowing that cannot be taught, a power that cannot be taken, a presence that cannot be faked. And that's when you realize the truth. You were never meant to fit into this world. You were meant to recode it through the frequency of your full, unapologetic self, not through performance. Through presence, not through noise, through knowing. That is the final sign that you carry rare dark power, when you no longer fear being invisible, misunderstood, or alone. Because you're not here to be seen. You're here to bend the unseen. Once you reach this stage, you stop reacting to the world and start redesigning it. You don't wait for permission. You don't explain your energy. You don't shrink to make others comfortable. Instead, you embody your truth without needing validation. And what happens next is nothing short of miraculous. Reality begins to respond to your alignment like an echo. You think it. It arrives. You feel it. It manifests. You hold the vibration, and the entire field rearranges to match it. Not because you pushed, but because you remembered who you are. But don't misunderstand, this isn't about perfection. It's not about being high vibe 24/7. It's about integrity. It's about coherence. It's about being so brutally honest with yourself that your frequency becomes untouchable. That no projection, no judgment, no external chaos can knock you out of your center. That's the real power. The ability to hold your ground in front of the void and say, "I am not afraid of you. You are me." Can you feel that? That's the part of you that's been waiting to take the throne. The version of you that doesn't hustle, doesn't beg, doesn't chase, just is. And it's not arrogance, it's sovereignty, the deepest humility. The knowing that you are both the architect and the student of your life. That you are both the creator and the destroyer. That the darkness within you is not meant to be healed, it's meant to be honored. So I ask you again, what would happen if you stopped trying to be light and started being whole? What if your pain was your compass, not your curse? What if your rage was sacred? What if your confusion was a portal? What if your shame was just a veil over ancient power? Because here's the secret. You bend reality not by becoming something else, but by becoming fully yourself. You don't need to learn more. You need to remember more. You don't need to be better. You need to be clearer. And when your energy is raw, true, and undistorted, you become a force that the universe cannot ignore. That's when the timeline shifts. That's when the people you need start finding you. That's when opportunities appear without logic. That's when you stop chasing results and start receiving alignment. Because you're no longer asking reality to give you something. You're showing reality what to reflect. You are the cause, not the effect. The source, not the seeker. The signal, not the seeker of signs. And the most beautiful part, you no longer need to prove any of this. You don't need to shout it. You don't need to convince anyone. Because your life becomes the proof. Your energy becomes the evidence. Your presence becomes the permission slip for others to remember who they are too. That's how you lead. Not by trying, but by being. So now we arrive at the final question. The one every rare soul must answer alone. Not with their mind, but with their frequency. Will you finally accept the weight of your own power? Not just the parts that feel good, but the parts that require sacrifice. The parts that require letting go. The parts that demand you become the version of you that no one else will ever fully understand, but everyone can feel. Because that's the gift. You were never meant to be understood. You were meant to be felt. You were meant to walk into a room and shift the field. You were meant to be the mystery that awakens something ancient in others. You were meant to be the reminder, the mirror, the echo of a truth they've forgotten. And now the world is ready, not for more answers, but for more frequency holders, for those who carry the codes of both light and shadow, for those who don't just talk about power but embody it, quietly, fiercely, unapologetically. So let me leave you with this. Stop trying to convince the world that you exist. Start becoming impossible to ignore. Because once you do that, once you fully step into your dark power, you stop bending reality. Reality begins to bend around you.